The spaceship Horizon Dawn moved slowly through the colorful clouds of the Kelrath Nebula. Captain Henry Blake stood on the bridge and looked at the screens in front of him. His crew was taking the ship to meet alien scientists at their research station. The Galactic Council had invited humans to watch something very special. An Emperor dragon egg was about to hatch, and only 3 of these dragons existed in the whole galaxy. Lieutenant Sophie Morris sat at her station and checked the readings from her computer. Something was wrong. The research station ahead of them was sending out distress signals. She told Captain Blake right away. He ordered the ship to go faster. When the Horizon Dawn reached the station and connected to it, the human crew saw a terrible mess. The walls were burned and broken. Alien scientists from many different worlds were hiding in corners and behind equipment. They all looked scared. In the middle of the main room sat a broken egg. It was as big as a small truck and made of crystal that sparkled even though it was shattered into pieces. Next to the broken egg was a baby dragon. It was about the size of a horse, but it moved like a wild animal. The dragon's scales changed colors so fast that it hurt to look at them. Its eyes glowed bright gold like melted metal. When the dragon opened its mouth and screamed, the air around it seemed to bend and twist in strange ways. All the aliens in the room pressed themselves against the walls. They were too afraid to move or speak loudly. A tall, bug-like alien named Vrax came forward. He was the director of the research station. His voice shook when he talked to Captain Blake. He explained that the dragon had broken out of its egg 3 hours ago. Since then, it had been angry and violent. Nobody could get close to it. The dragon would not eat or drink anything. Captain Blake listened carefully and thought about what to do. He knew from his studies that emperor dragon babies needed to bond with someone who would take care of them. This had to happen on the first day after they hatched, or the dragon would die. But there was a big problem. Emperor dragons had special mental powers. They could feel what other living things were feeling, especially fear and anger. When they sensed fear, they became more angry and dangerous. Every species in the galaxy was afraid of emperor dragons, which made the dragons angrier. It was a problem with no easy answer. Among the humans who had come to see the egg was a little girl named Lily Carter. She was 8 years old. Her father was Paul Carter, the chief engineer on the Horizon Dawn. Lily had asked her father many times to bring her along to see the dragon egg. Paul had finally said yes, because he thought it would be safe and educational. Now he wished he had left her on the ship. While the adults talked about what to do, Lily slipped away from her father's side. She walked toward the angry dragon with slow, careful steps. The alien scientists saw her and gasped. They tried to call her back, but Captain Blake held up his hand to stop them. Something about the way the little girl walked made everyone go quiet and watch. Lily did not feel scared as she looked at the dragon. She had grown up loving animals and reading stories about magical creatures. When she looked at the baby dragon, she did not see a monster. She saw a scared baby that had just been born into a strange and frightening world. She could tell that under all that anger, the dragon was shaking and afraid. Her heart felt sad for it. The dragon turned its huge head and looked right at Lily. Everyone in the room held their breath and waited to see what would happen. The dragon's bright gold eyes locked onto the small human girl. For the first time since it had hatched, the dragon stopped screaming and thrashing around. Lily smiled at the dragon. She sat down on the floor with her legs crossed. She was still several steps away from the dragon, giving it space. Then she began to hum a song. It was a lullaby that her mother used to sing to her at bedtime when she was younger. The dragon tilted its head to one side and listened to the sound. Its scales slowly stopped flashing through angry colors. They settled into a deep, calm, blue color. After a long moment that felt like forever, the baby dragon took one small step toward Lily. Then, it took another step. It moved slowly, watching her carefully. When the dragon reached Lily, it lowered its enormous head. The head was bigger than Lily's whole body. The dragon pressed its snout gently against her chest, right over her heart. Lily lifted her small arms and wrapped them around the dragon's face as much as she could. She whispered softly to it, "It's okay now. You're safe. I've got you. Nobody will hurt you." In that moment, something amazing happened. A bond formed between the little girl and the dragon. It was a connection deeper than friendship, stronger than family. Every alien in the room who had mental powers felt it happen. They gasped out loud. The Emperor Dragon had chosen someone to bond with. And that someone was a human child. This should not have been possible. The dragon's scales glowed with a soft blue light. It made a sound that was almost like a purr. Lily laughed and hugged the dragon's face tighter. Her father stood frozen in place, not sure if he should be happy or terrified. Captain Blake watched with wide eyes, already thinking about what this would mean for humanity and the galaxy. The other aliens slowly came out from their hiding places. They could not believe what they were seeing. A creature that had filled them with terror just minutes ago was now gentle and calm in the arms of a child. Vrax, the station director, spoke quietly. "In all the history of our galaxy, this has never happened before. Humans are a young species. We did not think they could bond with Emperor Dragons. We were wrong." Paul Carter finally moved. He walked slowly toward his daughter and the dragon. The dragon's eyes followed him, but there was no anger in them anymore. Lily looked up at her father and smiled the biggest smile he had ever seen. "Dad, this is my friend." Paul did not know whether to laugh or cry. He knelt down next to his daughter and looked into the dragon's golden eyes. The dragon looked back at him with an intelligence that was almost human. Paul understood then that this was not just an animal. This was a person, a being with thoughts and feelings. "What are you going to name him?" Paul asked his daughter. Lily thought for a moment, still holding on to the dragon. "Ember. His name is Ember." The dragon made that purring sound again, clearly pleased with the name. The aliens in the room began to talk among themselves in excited voices. They knew that news of this bonding would spread across the galaxy within hours. Everything had just changed. A human child and an emperor dragon had formed a bond. And nobody knew what would happen next. Captain Blake activated his communication device and sent a message back to Earth. He also sent one to the Galactic Council headquarters. Both messages were short, but carried enormous weight. A new chapter in galactic history had just begun. All because a tiny, brave girl had seen past her fear to the lonely, scared baby that needed a friend. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting just hours after Lily bonded with Ember. Representatives from hundreds of different worlds gathered in a massive chamber on Unity Station, the huge space structure that served as the government center for all known civilizations. The news had traveled fast. A human child had bonded with an emperor dragon, something that nobody thought could happen. Elder Korth was a very old being made of living crystal. He served as the speaker of the council, which meant he led the meetings and spoke for everyone. He addressed all the representatives with a serious voice. Emperor dragons were living weapons, he reminded them. These creatures had so much power that they had destroyed entire empires in the ancient past. The last emperor dragon that had bonded with someone belonged to a warlord 4,000 years ago. It had taken 20 different species working together to defeat that warlord and his dragon. The galaxy still remembered that terrible war. Many council members stood up and argued that the dragon should be killed before it grew bigger. Others said that Lily should be separated from the creature, and that the dragon should be raised alone in a cage. A few voices, mostly from species that were friends with humanity, said that maybe this bonding was meant to happen. Maybe humans, who were still young and new to the galaxy, had something special that other species did not have. Back on the ship Horizon Dawn, Lily stayed with Ember in a large cargo bay. The crew had quickly cleared it out and made it comfortable for the dragon. Lily had named him Ember, even though the alien scientists said that emperor dragons already knew their true names and could not be renamed. Lily did not care what the scientists said. To her, He was Ember, and the dragon seemed very happy with that name. Her father Paul watched from a room with windows that looked down into the cargo bay. His daughter sat on the floor reading a book out loud while a creature that could destroy entire starships cuddled against her like a big puppy. Ember's scales had stayed that peaceful blue color since the bonding. Sometimes little flickers of red and gold danced across them when he was sleeping and dreaming. Captain Blake received a direct call from Earth's government. The leaders back home were worried, just like the Galactic Council, but for different reasons. If the Council decided to kill Ember or take him away from Lily, humanity would have to make a terrible choice. They could refuse and risk going to war with the rest of the galaxy, or they could let them take Lily's friend away, which meant sacrificing one of their own children for politics. Meanwhile, some of the braver alien scientists had overcome their fear. They started studying the bond from a safe distance. Dr. Kelvin Hughes was the main scientist on the Horizon Dawn, who studied alien life. He worked with several galactic researchers who were curious about what had happened. What they discovered was remarkable and changed everything they thought they knew. Emperor dragons had mental powers that made them very sensitive to the emotions of creatures around them. They could sense fear, aggression, and hostility from very far away. For most species, these emotions were automatic when facing a dangerous predator. The instinct to be afraid was built into their biology by millions of years of evolution. They could not help being scared. But humans, the scientists learned, had a unique ability. They could override their survival instincts when they felt compassion for something. Lily had not been stupid or reckless when she approached Ember. She had genuinely felt no fear because she looked past the dragon's power and saw that he was vulnerable and scared. That pure compassion, with no hint of self-preservation or hidden motives, had been like a bright light to Ember's confused and frightened mind. He had found in her the one thing he desperately needed, someone who did not see him as a threat, but as a person who deserved love. The research revealed something else that shocked everyone. Emperor dragons were not naturally aggressive or violent. Their rage came from a feedback loop created by the fear of others. When everyone around them was terrified, the dragons became terrifying in response. But when they were treated with real affection and kindness, they responded with loyalty and gentleness beyond measure. The species had been misunderstood for thousands of years. They had been trapped in a cycle of fear and violence that none of them had truly wanted. As the council continued their debates about what to do, Lily went on with her daily routine with Ember. She read books to him, played simple games, and taught him words in English. The dragon proved to be incredibly smart. He learned language at an amazing speed. Within just 1 week, he could understand complex sentences. He had even begun trying to communicate directly with Lily's mind, sending her pictures and feelings instead of words. One morning, Lily was brushing Ember's scales with a soft cloth to keep them shiny and clean. The dragon suddenly spoke for the first time. His voice did not come from his mouth. Instead, it appeared directly in Lily's mind, clear as a bell ringing. The words were perfect. "Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself." Lily's eyes went wide with surprise and joy. She hugged his massive front leg as tight as she could and smiled so big that her cheeks hurt. "You're my best friend, Ember. I'll always see you for who you really are." Ember wrapped his tail gently around Lily, being very careful not to squeeze too hard. He projected a feeling of warmth and safety into her mind. For the first time in his short life, he felt like he belonged somewhere. He was not a monster or a weapon. He was simply Ember. And that was enough. Dr. Hughes watched this interaction through the observation window and recorded everything. He turned to his alien colleagues and shook his head in wonder. "Do you see that? Perfect trust. Perfect understanding. They're not just bonded. They're family." One of the alien scientists, a being with 6 arms and skin that changed colors, nodded slowly. "My people have a saying. The strongest walls are built with stones of fear, but they crumble at the touch of love. We built walls around emperor dragons for millennia. This human child simply walked through them because she carried no fear, only love." The days turned into weeks. The Galactic Council continued to argue and debate. Some members were beginning to change their minds as they saw more reports about Lily and Ember. Videos of them playing together spread across the galaxy's communication networks. People from countless worlds watched the little human girl teaching the mighty dragon how to play simple games like hide and seek. They watched her laugh when Ember accidentally knocked over a stack of cargo containers while trying to hide his large body. They watched him gently pick her up with his mouth when she fell asleep while reading and carefully place her on a soft blanket. Public opinion began to shift. Ordinary citizens from many different species started sending messages to their council representatives. They said that maybe the old fears were wrong. Maybe it was time to try something new. The younger generation especially felt this way. They saw Lily and Ember as symbols of hope, proof that different beings could overcome their differences and find common ground. But not everyone was convinced. Some of the older, more traditional members of the council remained firm in their belief that emperor dragons were too dangerous to exist in civilized space. They began looking for any evidence of aggressive behavior, no matter how small, that they could use to argue for separation. Paul Carter had mixed feelings as he watched his daughter change and grow. Lily was still his little girl, but she was also becoming something more. She had a confidence and purpose that she never had before. She spoke with wisdom that seemed far beyond her 8 years. The bond with Ember was changing her, making her more than she had been. One night, Paul sat with Lily in their quarters after she had said goodnight to Ember. He brushed her hair like he used to when she was smaller. "Do you ever wish things were normal again?" he asked quietly. Before the dragon? Lily thought about this for a long moment. Then she looked up at her father with serious eyes. "Dad, I don't think things were ever meant to be normal for me. I think I was meant to meet Ember. We were meant to find each other. Does that make sense?" Paul hugged his daughter close. "Yeah, sweetheart. It makes perfect sense." He did not tell her about the arguments happening in the council, about the people who wanted to take Ember away. She would learn about that soon enough. For now, he just wanted her to be happy. In the cargo bay, Ember lay curled up on the padded floor. His eyes were closed, but he was not asleep. He could feel Lily's emotions, even from several rooms away. She was content and loved. That made him content too. He thought about his short life and everything that had happened. He had been so scared when he first broke out of his egg. The world had seemed hostile and wrong. But then Lily had come, and everything had changed. She had given him the greatest gift anyone could give, the gift of being understood. He would protect her forever. He would never let anything hurt her. This he promised to himself as he finally drifted off to sleep. The Galactic Council finally made their decision after weeks of arguing. They would not kill Ember or separate him from Lily, but they also would not give full approval yet. Instead, they created a compromise that nobody really liked, but everyone could accept. Lily and Ember would undergo a trial period of 1 galactic year under close supervision. They would live on Unity Station where experts could watch them and make sure the bond posed no threat to galactic security. If at any point Ember showed signs of aggression or lost control, he would be contained immediately, and the bonding would be forcibly broken. Earth's government reluctantly agreed, knowing this was better than the alternatives they had been offered. Paul Carter resigned from his position on the Horizon Dawn so he could stay with his daughter. Captain Blake personally vouched for them to the council, putting his own reputation on the line. Unity Station became their new home. They were given living quarters in the diplomatic section of the station. Next to their quarters was a large space that had been modified to fit Ember's growing size. The dragon was indeed growing very fast. Within the first month on the station, he had doubled in size. His body grew longer, and his wings developed from tiny nubs into impressive appendages that sparkled with an inner light. The scientists monitoring him said that he was growing faster than any emperor dragon on record. They believed this was because of the strong bond with Lily, which gave him emotional stability and security. Lily started attending school with the children of diplomats and station personnel. At first, The other children were afraid of her because of her connection to Ember. They had heard scary stories about emperor dragons and worried that Lily might be dangerous too. But Lily's natural kindness and friendly personality won them over quickly. She made friends with children from a dozen different species. Soon they were all asking their parents if they could meet the famous dragon. Ember was incredibly gentle with visitors, especially the young ones. He seemed to understand that children were precious and innocent, worthy of protection. One day, a small child from the Telkarian species accidentally stepped on Ember's tail while running around the enclosure. The adults watching gasped and prepared for the worst. But Ember simply lifted the boy up with the tip of his tail and placed him carefully on his back. The boy laughed with delight, and Ember made a happy, rumbling sound. Stories of Ember's gentleness began to spread through the station, slowly changing how people saw him. However, not everyone was convinced that the dragon was safe. A faction of council members led by Ambassador Threnix of the Corthalian Empire believed that emperor dragons were inherently too dangerous to exist in civilized space. Threnix was a stern diplomat with traditional views. He began a campaign to document any instance of aggressive behavior from Ember, no matter how minor, so he could build a case for separation. For months, nothing happened. Ember was the model of good behavior. He was patient, kind, and careful around everyone. Lily continued to grow and thrive in her new environment. She learned about different cultures and made friends from across the galaxy. The trial period seemed to be going well. Then came the day that changed everything. A cargo vessel was attempting to dock at Unity Station when its engine suffered a catastrophic failure. The ship's reactor began to overload, building up to an explosion. If the reactor exploded at the station, it would breach the hull and kill thousands of people. The station's defense systems were not designed to contain such a large blast. Evacuation was impossible because there was not enough time. Lily felt Ember's alarm through their bond before any official alarms sounded on the station. She was in her quarters doing homework when suddenly her heart started racing. She knew something was terribly wrong. The dragon's eyes snapped open where he lay in his enclosure. They glowed with intense light. He stood up and moved toward the wall of the space, and Lily knew instinctively what he intended to do. "Go," she whispered, even though he could not hear her from where she was. Ember crashed through the reinforced wall as if it were made of paper. Debris flew everywhere, but he was already moving too fast for anyone to react. He flew through the station's interior corridors, his massive body weaving between support structures and equipment with impossible grace and precision. Aliens scattered in terror as the dragon passed by, but he paid them no attention at all. His mind was focused on a single goal. He reached the docking bay in seconds. The failing cargo ship hung in the docking clamps, sparks and smoke pouring from its hull. Ember positioned himself between the ship and the populated sections of the station. Then he did something that had never been recorded in all of dragon history. He wrapped his entire body around the cargo vessel, his wings spreading wide to create maximum coverage. Then, he created a barrier, using his mental powers. It was a shimmering field of pure psychic energy that contained the ship in a sphere of force. The effort was immense. Sweat formed on his scales, and his whole body trembled from the strain. The reactor exploded with tremendous force. The blast wave should have torn through the station and killed everyone in 3 surrounding sections. Instead, it was completely absorbed by Ember's barrier. The dragon held it for 10 agonizing seconds, containing the full fury of the explosion, while station crews frantically activated emergency shields around the docking bay. Only when he saw that the shields were in place did he release the barrier and let the remaining energy dissipate safely into space. Ember collapsed onto the docking bay floor, completely exhausted. His scales had lost their color, and his breathing was labored. Medical teams rushed into the bay, but they hesitated, still afraid to approach the dragon even though he had just saved their lives. It was Lily, running as fast as her small legs could carry her, who reached him first. She had felt his pain through the bond and had sprinted from their quarters despite her father trying to stop her. She climbed onto his heaving side, and pressed her face against his scales. Tears ran down her cheeks. "You did it. You saved everyone. You're a hero." "One." The dragon's eyes opened slightly. His mental voice was very weak. "I could not let anyone hurt you by hurting them. You taught me that every life matters, not just the ones we love." Paul Carter arrived moments later, out of breath from running. He looked at his daughter holding onto the dragon who had just risked everything to save strangers. In that moment, all his fears and doubts vanished. This was not a monster. This was a noble being, with a pure heart. The entire event had been captured on security cameras. The footage was sent to the Galactic Council immediately, when the council members watched a dragon sacrifice itself to save beings who feared it, who had debated killing it, who had shown it no trust or kindness. Even the harshest critics fell silent. They watched the small human girl climb onto the exhausted dragon and comfort him. They heard her words of love and gratitude. They saw what true bonding looked like. Ambassador Threnix himself came to visit Lily and Ember in the medical bay where the dragon was recovering. Doctors had checked him thoroughly and found that he would be fine after some rest. The stern diplomat stood at the foot of the medical bed and looked at the girl sitting beside the sleeping dragon. She was holding his claw in her small hands, refusing to leave his side even to eat or sleep. "I was wrong," Threnix said simply. His voice was quiet and humble. "I thought power defined what a being would become. I thought emperor dragons were weapons because they had the power to destroy. But you have shown us that connection and love are far more powerful than any weapon. You have shown us that what defines a being is not what they can do, but what they choose to do." Lily looked up at the ambassador. "Ember is good. He was always good. People just had to give him a chance to show it. Ember. For market. Ember. Ember." Threnix nodded slowly. "You are wise beyond your years, young one. The council will hear my recommendation. The trial period will continue. But I will argue that it is merely a formality now. You and Ember have proven yourselves beyond any doubt." News of what Ember had done spread across the galaxy even faster than news of the bonding had. Media outlets from thousands of worlds covered the story. Public opinion shifted dramatically in favor of the dragon and the girl. Messages of support flooded into Unity Station. Children from countless species drew pictures of Ember and sent them to Lily. Adults, who had been skeptical, now became advocates. 1 week after the incident, Ember was fully recovered. He stretched his wings in his enclosure and felt strong again. Lily sat on his back, something she did often now. Through their bond, she could feel his contentment and also his pride. Not pride in himself, but pride in her. She had taught him how to be good, and that was the greatest gift he could ever receive. "We make a pretty good team," Lily said, patting his neck. Ember's mental voice was warm and full of affection. "The best team in the galaxy." 2 years passed on Unity Station, and they were years of remarkable change for both Lily and Ember. The dragon grew to his full adult size, becoming a magnificent creature whose wingspan could have covered a small building. His scales shimmered with colors that constantly shifted to reflect his emotions. Blue meant he was content and happy. Green showed curiosity about something. Gold appeared when he felt joy. Only the faintest hint of red ever appeared in his scales now, and only when he felt protective of Lily or others he cared about. Lily was now 10 years old and had grown too, though not as dramatically as her dragon friend. She had become somewhat famous throughout the galaxy. People called her the Dragon Speaker, the child who had achieved the impossible. But to those who knew her on the station, she was still just Lily. She loved drawing pictures, told terrible jokes that made people groan, and insisted on braiding colorful ribbons into Ember's horns. Despite his protests that it made him look silly and undignified, the bond between them had deepened in ways that scientists struggled to fully understand or measure. They could sense each other's emotions across vast distances, even when they were on opposite sides of the massive station. Lily could sometimes see through Ember's eyes, experiencing the world from his perspective. He could feel her dreams at night, seeing the strange and wonderful things her sleeping mind created. They were not master and pet, or even just best friends. They were two souls who had found in each other a completion that neither had known they were missing. During this time, humanity's status in the Galactic Council rose dramatically. The other species began to see humans differently. They noticed how humans could form genuine emotional connections across the vastness of biological difference. Where other species saw aliens as fundamentally other and separate, humans saw potential friends and companions. Human diplomats found that aliens who had been cold and distant before were now warm and curious about Earth and its people. The human capacity for compassion, once seen as a naive weakness, was now recognized as a potential bridge between species that might otherwise never understand each other. But peace was not universal in the galaxy. Far beyond the civilized sectors, on the other side of known space, the Vrexor collective had been growing stronger and more aggressive. They were a militaristic empire that believed power was the only truth that mattered. They had been expanding into neutral territories, ignoring council sanctions and warnings. Recently, they had begun attacking colony worlds, killing civilians and taking resources by force. When the Vrexor attacked a colony that had significant populations of both humans and Telcarians, the Galactic Council was forced to respond with more than just words. They began to assemble a defense fleet, bringing together ships from dozens of member species. Intelligence reports suggested that the collective possessed weapons of terrible power, and that their military was much larger than anyone had previously thought. The Council faced the possibility of the first major galactic war in 2,000 years. Admiral Henry Blake, who had been promoted from his position as captain of the Horizon Dawn, now commanded Earth's contribution to the defense fleet. He came to Unity Station to visit Lily and Ember before the fleet departed. He looked older now, with more gray in his hair. The weight of command showed clearly on his features. He sat down with Lily in the garden area near their quarters. Ember lay nearby, listening to the conversation. Blake spoke gently but honestly. "We're going to war. The Vrexor won't stop their attacks unless we stop them. A lot of people are going to be in danger, and some will die." Ember raised his massive head. His eyes flickered with red for the first time in many months. His voice in their minds was deep and serious. The Vrexor do not understand peace. They see it as weakness. They will not stop until someone makes them stop. Lily felt her friend's anger through the bond and gently placed her hand on his snout. The red in his scales faded slightly at her touch. She looked at Admiral Blake with determination in her young eyes. "Can we help? Can Ember and I do something to stop people from dying?" Blake hesitated. The idea of bringing a child and her dragon into a war zone seemed wrong on every level. But he also knew that Ember's power was unlike anything else in the galaxy. One Emperor dragon could turn the tide of a battle, could save thousands of lives. And if anyone could keep that power focused and controlled, prevent it from becoming destructive, it was Lily. "The Council is debating it now," Blake admitted. "Some members want to ask for your help. Others say it's wrong to involve you because you're just a child. They say it would be using you as a weapon." "Oh," Lily shook her head firmly. "I'm a child who has a very powerful friend, and Ember and I made a promise when we bonded. We protect each other, and we protect those who can't protect themselves. That's what being friends means. That's what having power means. You use it to help others." Ember nodded his massive head in agreement. "Where Lily goes, I go. If she believes we should help, then we will help. We will not let innocent people die, if we can prevent it." Blake reported this conversation to the Council. They debated for days about the ethics and practicality of involving Lily and Ember. In the end, the decision was left to Paul Carter. He was Lily's father, and only he had the right to make this choice. Paul sat with his daughter in their quarters late one night. He held her hands in his and looked into her eyes. She looked so much like her mother, who had passed away when Lily was very young. He saw that same strength and compassion in his daughter's face. "If you do this," he said carefully, "you'll see things that no child should have to see. War is terrible, Sweetheart. It changes people. You might see friends get hurt. You might have to make hard choices. Are you sure you want this? Lily hugged her father tightly. She was quiet for a long moment before answering. I'm scared, Dad. I don't want to see bad things happen. But I'm more scared of what will happen if Ember and I don't help. How many people will die because we stayed safe? How can I live with that? Paul looked over at Ember, who had been listening from his resting place. The dragon met his gaze steadily. When Ember spoke, his mental voice carried a weight of absolute sincerity. I will protect her with every fiber of my being, with every ounce of power I possess. I swear this to you as one father to another, for she is as much my family as she is yours. I would die before I let harm come to her. Paul Carter felt tears running down his face. He pulled his daughter close and held her for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Okay. You can go. But you come back to me safe, both of you. That's an order. Lily smiled through her own tears. Yes, sir. The next day, the announcement was made public. Lily Carter and Ember would join the Defense Fleet as special peacekeeping operatives. The news caused a sensation. Across the galaxy, some people celebrated, believing that the dragon and the girl would bring hope to the conflict. Others protested, saying it was wrong to put a child in danger. But the decision had been made. Lily and Ember began training immediately. Military advisors taught Lily about fleet communications, emergency procedures, and how to coordinate with other ships. Ember practiced his flying in the vast open spaces near the station, building his speed and agility. They trained together to act as one unit, to anticipate each other's moves perfectly. On the day they left Unity Station to join the fleet, thousands of people came to see them off. Children held signs with encouraging messages. Adults waved and cheered. Paul Carter stood at the departure gate and watched his daughter climb onto Ember's back. She wore a special flight suit designed to keep her safe, with communication equipment that would let her talk to the fleet commanders. Ember spread his wings, which now spanned nearly 50 meters from tip to tip. He looked back at Paul and sent him a private mental message. I will bring her home safely. I promise. Then they launched into space, flying toward the assembled fleet and toward a destiny that would change the galaxy forever. The fleet that gathered at the border of Council space was the largest military force assembled in centuries. Hundreds of ships, from dozens of worlds, formed a defensive wall against Vrexor aggression. Admiral Blake commanded from the flagship Endeavour, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and shields. In a specially designed hangar bay on the Endeavour, Lily and Ember prepared for what was coming. Lily wore her lightweight flight suit, checking all the communication systems one last time. The suit had been made specifically for her small size and included safety features that would protect her in the vacuum of space if something went wrong. Ember's scales had been fitted with sensor nodes that would allow the fleet's computers to track his position and coordinate with his movements. But both of them knew that when battle came, their true coordination would come from their bond, not from technology or computers. The Vrexor Collective's fleet appeared on the edge of sensor range 2 days later, and it was terrifyingly massive. Their ships were dark and angular, built to look intimidating and cruel. They outnumbered the Council fleet 2-1, and intelligence reports said their weapons were more advanced than anything the Council had. The Vrexor had been preparing for this war for a very long time. Admiral Blake opened a communication channel with the Vrexor commander, hoping for one final chance at diplomacy. He offered to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. The response came quickly, and it was brutal. The Vrexor ships opened fire without any warning. Laser beams and missiles filled the space between the two fleets, turning the darkness into a light show of destruction. The Council fleet fought bravely and with great skill, but they were being pushed back. Vrexor tactics were ruthless and efficient. They did not just attack military targets. They deliberately targeted life support systems and medical ships, trying to maximize casualties and break the morale of their enemies. Within the first hour of fighting, a dozen Council ships had been destroyed. Hundreds of crew members were dead, and many more were injured. Admiral Blake made the difficult decision. He activated his communication link to the special hangar bay. Ember launched from the Endeavor's hangar bay with Lily secured on his back. She was held safely by a special harness that had been designed by the best engineers in the fleet. The moment they entered the battle space, everything changed. Ember moved through the void of space like nothing else that existed. His wings created ripples in space itself, allowing him to maneuver in ways that seemed to defy the laws of physics. He was faster than the smallest fighters, more agile than any missile, and his scales were completely impervious to standard weapons. But Ember had not come to destroy. Lily had made him promise before they left Unity Station. They would not kill anyone if they could help it. They would find another way. Ember flew through the battlefield, weaving between explosions and laser fire. Everywhere he went, his psychic presence pushed out in waves of overwhelming calm. Vrexor weapons targeting systems began to malfunction as their operators suddenly questioned what they were doing. Ships that were on collision courses veered away as their pilots felt an unexpected surge of clarity and doubt. Lily reached out with her own voice, amplified by Ember's tremendous psychic power. She spoke to both fleets. Her words carried across every communication channel. Please, stop. Just stop. We don't have to do this. We don't have to hurt each other. There has to be another way. Her voice, the desperate plea of a child begging for peace, rang in the ears of thousands of soldiers and pilots. For a moment, the firing actually slowed. People on both sides hesitated, suddenly seeing the absurdity and waste of what they were doing. Some of the younger Vrexor soldiers felt tears on their faces and did not understand why. But the Vrexor Supreme Commander, watching from his massive command battleship, was not moved by compassion or doubt. He was an old warrior who had spent his entire life believing that strength was the only thing that mattered. He saw the dragon and the child as a trick, a manipulation designed to weaken his forces. He became furious and ordered every ship under his command to focus all weapons on one target. Destroy that creature and the child. Show the Council that we do not fear their weapons or their sentiment. Hundreds of weapons systems turned toward Ember. The dragon could have easily dodged them. His speed and agility made him nearly impossible to hit, but if he moved, the ships behind him would be exposed to that massive barrage of fire. Innocent people would die. Ember made his choice in a fraction of a second. He wrapped himself and Lily in a psychic barrier and simply absorbed the assault. But this was different from the reactor explosion at Unity Station. This was not one source of energy but hundreds of military weapons firing continuously with the intent to kill. The barrier held, but Lily could feel Ember's terrible pain through their bond. He was being hurt badly, but he refused to drop the shield or move from his position. Ember, stop! Lily screamed over the roar of weapons fire. Ember's mental voice was calm despite the agony he was experiencing. Then I die protecting you and them. You taught me that some things are worth dying for. Love is one of them. Honor is another. Lily felt something break open inside her heart at those words. A power she had not known she possessed surged up from deep within her. It was born from pure desperation, from the absolute refusal to lose her best friend. Her consciousness merged completely with Ember's mind. Suddenly, she was not just riding on his back. She was him, and he was her. They were one being, one heart, one soul, moving and thinking as a single entity. Together, joined in a way that transcended normal bonding, they reached out with their combined psychic might. They touched the mind of every single person in both fleets, not to control them or manipulate them, but simply to let them feel what Lily and Ember felt for each other. They shared the memory of their first meeting, when a scared baby dragon found comfort in the arms of a brave little girl. They shared the feeling of pure, unconditional love. They shared trust that went beyond question or doubt. They shared a bond that transcended species, size, power, and every circumstance that should have kept them apart. The Vrexor Supreme Commander felt it too. Sitting in his command chair, surrounded by displays showing the battle, he suddenly remembered something from long ago. He remembered why he had joined the military when he was young. It had not been for power or conquest. It had been to protect his younger siblings after their parents died. He remembered loving them so much that he would have given anything to keep them safe. He remembered being young and believing that he could make the universe a better place. Tears began to run down the commander's weathered face. Decades of hardened military conditioning cracked and fell away like old paint. He saw with sudden clarity what he had become and what he had lost. His hand trembled as he reached for his communications panel. All Vrexor ships, cease fire immediately. I repeat, all ships, cease fire now. That is a direct order from Supreme Commander. The weapons went silent. Both fleets drifted in space, their crews struggling to process what they had just experienced. Some people were crying openly. Others sat in stunned silence, trying to understand the profound emotional experience they had just shared. A few laughed with the giddy, almost hysterical relief of people who had been certain they were about to die, but had been given an unexpected second chance. Admiral Blake found his own voice thick with emotion. He had felt it too, that overwhelming wave of love and trust. We are receiving your ceasefire order. Will you meet with us to negotiate peace? The Supreme Commander's face appeared on the communication screens throughout both fleets. He looked older and tired, but also somehow lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Yes, we will meet. And I would very much like to meet the child and the dragon who just reminded an old soldier what it means to truly be alive. 3 months passed. During that time, diplomats from the Council and the Vrexor Collective worked day and night to hammer out a peace treaty. It was not easy. There were disagreements and setbacks, but something fundamental had changed. The people on both sides had felt that moment of connection, and it made them want to find solutions instead of excuses for continued conflict. Finally, a comprehensive peace treaty was signed. The Vrexor Collective agreed to stop all aggressive expansion and to open their worlds to trade and cultural exchange. They would join the Galactic Council as probationary members, with full membership possible after they proved their commitment to peace. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a path forward, and that was more than anyone had dared hope for before the battle. A grand ceremony was held on Unity Station to celebrate the peace and to honor those who had made it possible. The main council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. They came to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. Lily stood on a raised platform in the center of the chamber. She wore a simple blue dress that her father had helped her pick out. She had wanted to wear something nice but not too fancy. Ember coiled beside her, his massive body taking up a significant portion of the platform. His scales glowed with a brilliant gold color that filled the entire chamber with warm, gentle light. Elder Korth approached them slowly, carrying a small crystal that pulsed with its own inner light. The ancient being's voice carried throughout the chamber without need for amplification. Lily, Carter, and Ember, by the authority vested in me by the Galactic Council, I name you Peacebringers. You have shown us that the greatest power in the universe is not weapons or technology or even knowledge. The greatest power is the capacity to love across all boundaries, to see past all differences, to connect with others in ways that transform both parties. You are, both of you, heroes to countless worlds and an inspiration to billions of beings. Lily accepted the crystal, feeling its pleasant warmth in her small hands. She looked out at the thousands of faces watching her. Then she looked up at Ember, meeting his golden eyes. Through their bond, she felt his contentment and pride. Not pride in what they had accomplished, but pride in who they had become together. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the silent chamber. Ember and I didn't do anything special or magical. We just saw each other for who we really were. We didn't let fear or differences stop us from being friends. Maybe if everyone could do that, if everyone could really see each other, really try to understand each other, we wouldn't need heroes at all. We would just have friends. Ember lowered his massive head to nuzzle against Lily gently. His voice resonated in the minds of everyone present. A dragon speaking to the galaxy for the first time in recorded history. A tiny, brave human girl taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of love that is stronger than fear. She is my sister, my friend, my heart. Through her, I learned that every being in this galaxy is worth knowing, worth protecting, worth loving. That is the truth that saved me, and perhaps it is the truth that can save us all. The chamber erupted in applause and cheers that lasted for several minutes. Representatives stood and clapped. Some cried openly. The Vrexor Supreme Commander, standing among the crowd, applauded harder than anyone else. But Lily and Ember barely noticed the celebration happening around them. They were already thinking about what came next, about the adventures still waiting for them, about all the people they had yet to meet. Because that was what they had learned, what they had proven beyond any doubt or argument. In a galaxy of countless species and infinite differences, one universal truth remained constant and unchanging. Love transcends everything. When a furious emperor dragon hatchling and a tiny brave human girl could find each other across the vastness of space and change the fate of entire civilizations, then anything was truly possible. Together, holding on to that truth, they would make sure the galaxy never forgot this lesson. And wherever they went, whatever challenges they faced, they would face them as they had always faced them. Together, united by a bond that could never be broken, showing the universe that friendship and love were the most powerful forces in existence. Their story had just begun.